Hello, everybody. I'm going to give everybody one more minute to get settled and get yourself a glass of water. And then I'm going to do a little bit of an introduction as to what we are going to be chatting about tonight. In the meantime, in the chat, let me know where you are joining from today. I am in North Vancouver. Oh, hi, Tanya in Abbotsford. Aurelia. Hi, Diane. Hi, Steph in Calgary. Grand Forks, BC. West Coast is representing today. That's not always the case. All righty, Castlegar. Hey, another BCer. We really are representing today. All right, I am going to get started. My name is Nicole Byram. I am a registered dietitian with Celiac Canada. And tonight we are talking about back to school. I'm going to get my slideshow started. So back to school can be tricky. For those of you who don't know me, I've been a dietitian for a very long time, and I've got three daughters. My middle daughter has celiac disease, was diagnosed when she was 5. So we have gone through, she was in kindergarten when she was diagnosed. So we have gone through the whole school process with her. She is now in grade 9. My husband also has celiac disease, was diagnosed as an adult, and my mom has celiac disease, was diagnosed as an older adult. So lots in my family, but certainly the kiddos are always near and dear to my heart because I feel that they need a lot of our support in order to help navigate this because it can be really tricky. So a couple of housekeeping things. Just before we get started, there is along the bottom of the toolbar, there is a chat function where you are putting in where you are from. Welcome, everybody. And then there's a Q&A section. The Q&A section, I think it's just to the left of it, is where we will collect all of the official questions for tonight. So, or this afternoon for most of us. So please write your official question in the Q&A, and I will get to those at the end. I'm going to try to wrap up the presentation by about 4:40 is my goal, to have 20 minutes for questions, because this sort of topic, a lot of it is individual and people have questions about their specific situation. So I want to make sure that I can help support you as best I can with any sort of suggestions. This session is being recorded and you will get an email with the recording in the upcoming week. So probably next week, actually, now that I say that out loud, as it's a Wednesday. So you will be getting this. You will be able to watch it again if you want it, if you didn't hear something. I know sometimes people will say I was taking screenshots as you were going of the slides, but you will get that recording. So not to worry about that. Okay, so without further ado, I would like to first of all acknowledge that this presentation was created on the traditional unceded territory of the Coast Salish peoples, including the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations. Here we promise to learn, live, and share educational experiences on this territory, and I express my deep gratitude. I wanted to start with some poll questions. Now, what is this? This meeting is being recorded. That is just fine. Okay, let me see if I can do this. I haven't done polls very often, but I think I can do it. Okay, I am going to launch a poll. And the first question says, what grade is your child in? I don't see anybody answering. Is everybody getting can everybody see the poll? Yeah, okay, good. I'm seeing people answer now. Excellent. Okay, I see some high schoolers. The second question, which you can do all three of these at the same time, reads, what is your most pressing concern at school for your child with regards to celiac disease? And the third question is, does your child's school have a hot lunch program? Okay, so one person with a kindy or a grade 1. Majority of kids are between grades 2 and 4. one in grade 6, 7, or 8, and one in 9, 10, 11, or 12. Okay. And 50-50 for hot lunch. All right, I am going to close the poll and see if I can see the details of that question. I'm going to share the results with everybody. Okay, so it looks like learning for clients today. Looks like we have a dietitian on. Hello. Erin, looks like you're a dietitian, I assume. Ideas for lunch, cross-contamination causing stomach aches, emotionally dealing with it, making sure everyone who needs it to be informed. Okay, great. Wanting to make sure that I'm covering all my bases. Whoops. So let's get back to it. Excellent. Thanks, everybody. Why is that not? Sorry, guys. I want it to take over my whole screen, but for some reason it's not wanting to. I'm going to stop sharing for one quick sec. Sorry, everybody, bear with me for a sec. All right. All right, slideshow from current slide. Let's just do that, and then I'll go back to here. Okay, so let's talk about celiac disease. So most of you here know what celiac disease is, but I always like to give just a little bit of a brief description or definition of what celiac disease is in case people here are really new. We get people from all different stages of the game. So celiac disease is an autoimmune disease where the immune system reacts against protein gluten. You know, people often will refer to celiac disease as an allergy to wheat or an allergy to gluten. It is not that. A wheat allergy is in itself a different process in the body. And this is celiac disease is something that you will not grow out of. So there's a lot of myths out there that it's a childhood disease, that you'll grow out of it as you get older. That's not the case. Autoimmune diseases you have for life. Celiac disease is an autoimmune disease that you will have for life and have to be on a gluten-free diet for life, or until we come up with a cure, hopefully and eventually. Gluten is a protein found in wheat, rye, barley, and their crossbred grains and regular oats. If you want to learn more about celiac disease, please come to one of my GF 101s. I teach them on the third Wednesday of every month. Or the second Wednesday, excuse me, of every month, because I do believe I've got one next week. Oh, that would be the third Wednesday then. Yes, so it is the third. Sorry, the 4th was the 1st. Yes, so the 18th. Boy, this month is flying. So for any of you who are kind of newer to the game, these are free sessions and they're informative. I'm actually in a webinar, my dear. Okay, thank you. That's my littlest one coming to ask a question. My apologies. So please do come to that for further information about what celiac disease is. Just briefly though, there are 260 symptoms of celiac disease, none of which are unique to celiac disease. So we have what we call sort of 3 tiers of symptoms, or 3 silos of symptoms would be a better way to describe it. We've got atypical symptoms, which are the anemia, reproductive issues, osteoporosis, dental enamel defects. We've got the kind of the typical symptoms, which are the stomach aches, the weight loss, fatigue, those things. And then we have our neurological complications, which include, you know, numbness and tingling in your fingers, brain fog, anxiety, depression, and that sort of thing. So there are a lot of different symptoms that can occur. So no 2 people have the same symptoms when they get glutened. So just be aware of that in your child and try to figure out what their primary symptoms are. And their primary symptoms from being glutened may shift from prior to diagnosis and then after diagnosis. So once they are diagnosed, what we often find is once their gut has healed and they're feeling better, they become much more sensitive and their symptoms can become more pronounced than they were prior to it. So watch out for those. I'm going to give an example. My daughter, who is now 14, she will get a wicked stomach ache, and she will have vomiting. And I don't even know if vomiting is, yeah, it is. She will have quite serious vomiting that will last kind of sort of a 12-hour period. And then she will feel kind of gross for about a 24 to 36-hour period. My husband gets a mild stomach ache, but brain fog and numbness and tingling in his fingers and dizziness are his primary symptoms. The brain fog and the stomach aches now seem to be presenting the most. And my mom's is GI as well. So different, certainly different symptoms, different severities of symptoms. So watch out for your child's and try to figure out what exactly it is. So let's open this up by really starting to talk about navigating the classroom. Because I know when Julie was diagnosed, that was one of my biggest fears, is how is she going to manage without me? She was young. So for those of you, and this is why I asked that question, for those of you with some older kids, they're old enough to navigate things on their own. And one of the biggest pieces that we're going to do with them is empower them and teach them to speak up, to read labels, and to do all those sort of things. For the younger ones, it's much more difficult when their level of understanding, their level of comprehension and reading isn't the same. So navigating the classroom at different stages is going to mean different things. For those in elementary school, what I always suggest is plan ahead at the very beginning of the school year. So that would be right about now. Have a conversation with your teacher, your child's teacher, about what celiac disease is, why it's important that she or he or they not share food with other children, and why, and then provide them with a treat stash or a bag of goodies for the desk in the classroom. Because in COVID days, we weren't sharing food and there wasn't cupcakes being brought to the classroom, but now all of that is back. And kids are celebrating their birthdays once again in the classroom. And especially in those younger grades, I'm seeing cookies and cupcakes and Rice Krispie squares coming in. And what we don't want is for our child to feel left out. So what I always do at the very beginning of the year, or what I always did, I should say, because Julie's a bit older now, we would go to the grocery store and pick out some of her favorite treats. And so she felt special. It wasn't just like something like a Welch's fruit gummy or something like that. It was actually an equivalent to what they would be receiving as a birthday celebration. And then I let the teacher know, and then Julie would have those whenever there was some sort of celebration in the classroom. Occasionally, there'd be like rewards given in a classroom, and I would ensure that we had stuff for that too. So maybe if the kids were getting like gummy worms, which often say may contain on them, I would have a thing of Starburst in there, so she could get a Starburst when the rest of the group was getting something else. So figure out what your child's favorite thing is. Take them shopping. I really like to include them in this. We want them to feel, again, this is part of that empowerment piece. Really important that our kids do feel empowered in this disease process and in charge. So plan ahead, talk to your teacher, and ensure that you've got that treat stash in there. For those kids that are old enough, I would invite them to come to one of my GF 101s. Through Celiac Canada, signups are on the website, celiac.ca, probably where you signed up for this. And then in that session, we do walk through how to read a label. Now, I mentioned before the brow ingredients, so barley, rye, regular oats, and wheat. Even if you just started with that with your child and said, we're looking for one of these 4 ingredients, and if you see that, then you know it's not safe for you. So a couple of ingredients labels listed here. Both of them have wheat flour in them, so we would know that those are not safe. Malted barley flour, we know barley is one. I see that there. Again, reminding them of how to read labels and what to look for. On our website, there is also a labeling guide you can print up. I always suggest print it up and put it on your fridge so you can refer to it, and really help your child to know how to do that. So, oh, is this safe for me, Mom? Well, I don't know. Let's take a look at it. My biggest thing is, you can see I'm wearing glasses. I don't wear them for driving or for out and about. Um, I need them for reading. So if we were in a grocery store, and even when Julie was a little bit younger, she'd say, "Is this safe for me, Mom?" And I'd have to get her to read the ingredients list out because I can't see it. But what that did, it actually benefited both of us because it took the heat off me from always having to um, ensure what she was eating is safe, and it empowered her into knowing how to read a label. So she would read out the ingredients list, and I would say, "Well, do you see anything in there that would be unsafe for you? Do you see a brow ingredient?" And we would use that acronym term over and over again: barley, rye, regular oats, and wheat. And she'd say, "No, I don't see it, but what if it's in something else?" And I'd say, "Okay, you know the rules when it comes to labeling here in Canada. No priority allergen, gluten source, or sulfite can be hidden in an ingredients list. If it's there, it has to say it in an ingredients list, in a may contain statement, or in a contain statement." So really teaching them those rules is going to be an important piece of this process for those older ones. For the younger kids, what I bought was some, and I got them from Maples Labels. Um, I believe there's another company called Oliver's Labels. I want to say we used to be affiliated with them. And it was a no gluten sticker. I put it on Julie's water bottle, on her lunch kit, on a number of her containers that she would bring, on her bento box that she would bring, in order for the teacher, for the aide, for the grade 6 or 7 students who are in monitoring at lunchtime, because often there's no teachers in the classroom at lunch. So I wanted to make sure that whoever was on site at the time that my child was eating their meal could see quite clearly that there was a restriction to what she could eat. Because in kindergarten, grade 1, especially when she was newly diagnosed, it certainly wasn't on her radar. And it wouldn't have been something she would have just said, "Oh no, I can't have that," right away. Maybe it would, maybe I'm making an assumption, but in my mind, I wanted to just be extra cautious. So really making sure that we navigate the classroom with label reading or with clearly communicating to another staff or volunteer in the classroom is really important. And most classrooms don't allow sharing food anyways because of allergies. And in this case, we're going to call celiac disease an allergy because it just flows in with common language that everybody understands, knowing that it is an autoimmune disease. But empowerment through education is going to be really key. That being said, educating classmates is important too. And so we can do this one of a couple of ways. Certainly, and I'll get to the teacher handout. So we've got actually a really great teacher pamphlet that explains what celiac disease is and what's important. We've also got a school letter that I always print up, and it goes into Julie's file for whatever year it's in. I think the file actually continues from year to year. And, once your child has been diagnosed for a while, the school's generally pretty on top of it. Because celiac disease isn't super common in the school systems. I believe Julie's one of about 3 kids in her school, of about 350 kids, I think. So how do we educate the classmates? Well, you can, as a parent or caregiver, ask your teacher if you can go in and talk to the class and explain what celiac disease is, and then tell them what that means for your child. You can teach the teacher how to do it by giving them the pamphlet, going in and talking to them, and then they can explain that we don't share foods, we don't, and then there are kids in the classroom. They don't have to call out your kid either. If that makes your child uncomfortable, if they don't like being the center of attention, if they don't want that attention drawn to them, then the teacher can then say, "We've got some children in this class who cannot have gluten, and so this is what we do to protect them." So it could be done that way. For children who are a little bit older, for the kids that are in, for example, the later elementary school years or high school years, Julie has done science projects on celiac disease. So she's brought education and awareness to her classmates by doing projects on it. It's a great one to study, especially in science class if you pick a disease and you have to do something on it. So that's what they can do themselves. And then teaching your child advocacy is really, really important. So if they're offered treats, and even if the parents in best intention will say, oh no, they're gluten-free, it's Rice Krispie squares. Well, a couple of problems with that. Regular Rice Krispies are not, in fact, gluten-free. There's too much cross-contamination. They will have butter in them that could be cross-contaminated from household gluten. Maybe it was toast that they used that butter for, who knows? So there's no guarantees on whether or not the ingredients that were used are in fact gluten-free, despite somebody's promise that it may or may not be. In my experience and people's best of intentions, they don't understand that crumbs matter when it comes to celiac disease and quite how strict we need to be in order to keep our kids safe. And so teaching our kids to politely decline, something that's offered to them is a trick of the trade we really need to practice with them. So that could be, oh, thank you so much, but my mom put something in my teacher's desk and they've actually got it out for me already, but thank you. Or I just don't feel it right now, I'm too full. Let practice lines with them so they get used to it. So the first time they have to turn somebody down isn't the first time that it's ever happened. Get them to practice with you. You can say, oh, would you like a cupcake? Whomever, and then have them practice. No, thank you. I've got, my mom's got some treats in the teacher's desk for me because I have, and again, we could use the term, I have some allergies, or they could say, I have celiac disease. My daughter has no problem saying she has celiac disease. It's something it's just part of who she is. It's not who she is. So it's just, I've got celiac disease, so I can't have that, but I've got other stuff. So thanks anyways. So really empowering them to speak up for their needs. And this will boost their confidence and keep them safe. Now, 50-50 for the hot lunch program. So at our school, we do have a voluntary hot lunch program. So we have it once a week. And it rotates through what companies will do it. So sometimes it's, oh, what happened there? My screen just went off. Oh, that was strange. Sometimes it's Subway, sometimes it's White Spot, sometimes it's pizza, sometimes it's something called, anyways, regardless. So it goes through different things. So what I have done as a parent is I'm on the pack and I could give input as to what companies the hot lunch programs come from. I haven't done that because my role in the pack isn't hot lunch. Oh, there we go. It jumped ahead of me. What I have chosen to do is find out the list of vendors and I call them and I ask them how they manage the gluten-free section of things. So that has been what I've done. Some parents just opt out of hot lunch for whatever reason. It's expensive, so that can be a barrier. It might not be what your kid likes, so that can be a barrier. Or it might not be safe for your child's diet. That might be a barrier. Lots of reasons why families don't opt in for hot lunch. So it doesn't really single your child out, but I find hot lunch helpful because Tuesdays are hot lunch days for us, and I get a day off from making lunches. So I have always enjoyed it. So I choose to call the vendor and find out what is safe and what isn't. And some vendors are safe and some vendors aren't. So that's how I have navigated that. But again, you could get involved in it. Pizza days are particularly risky. Cross-contamination of gluten-free pizzas in places that are mass producing pizzas that have flour flying around. We tried it. My daughter was very keen to try it because she wanted to feel included and she wanted to feel the same as her friends all getting pizza. It looks yummy and it tastes great. So, but she discovered that after about the third time of getting glutened, we decided that That wasn't going to be the plan for us moving forward. She continued to order the booster juice that was there. And what I then did is I cooked up a Costco gluten-free pizza, which are delicious, by the way, and would send that with her. And she would, on some days, if I was able, I would come up and bring her a hot pizza slice. And on other days that I wasn't, we would send her with a cold pizza slice. But she still had pizza and matched all of her friends. And talk to your child and ask them how they feel about it, and together come up with a solution that works for both of you. Cross-contamination at school, just off the top, a single cross-contamination is not linked with any long-term complications. So I've had a number of parents who have called me and said, my child had a bite of this, or they were at a friend's house and they were given this. Are we back to square one? Is the TTG going to go from, that hard worked 4 up to 60, or is there going to be villus atrophy that occurs because of this? Am I increasing their risk for long-term complications? And thankfully, the answer to all of that is no. With a single cross-contamination, all we're dealing with is symptoms. They are awful. They can be awful. They can take time, and we give ourselves time, rest, and kindness in order to get through that, hydration and symptom management. And otherwise, there is nothing else that we need to do unless we think that there's a severe dehydration, in which case maybe an IV is necessary and a hospital visit. That is completely independent, up to you guys as a family, how unwell you think your child is. But as it goes with long-term complications, a single cross-contamination is not going to increase the risk for any of those, okay? But we do want to know what the plan is. So I always have a written plan with the school. If Julie is cross-contaminated at school, this is what we do. First of all, she tells a safe person. That might be her teacher, that might be her aide, that might be somebody in the office. And then the office will then call home. And again, depending on what age your child is, when they're littler, call home, depending on the child's reaction. They might wish to come home, or they might want to wait and see how they're doing. If your child doesn't need to come home, then just water and rest are best. If they do come home, then obviously the same thing, but at home. And a little bit of distraction is always helpful, or a hot bath, or a hot shower can be helpful as well. Heat can feel good if you have a heating pad or a hot water bottle. That can feel nice on their tummies as well, if a tummy upset is one of their primary symptoms. But certainly having a plan, having those numbers to call, to communicate what's going on is a good piece of the puzzle. So we really want to build a strong child. This is going to be one of the biggest things. And, I have a tendency to see the barriers. When Julie was diagnosed, I was like, oh my goodness, she's not gonna be able to do this. She's not gonna be able to do that. She's gonna miss out on this. She's gonna feel excluded. And I went immediately to the negative in my head. But what I failed to recognize, and what I see now through hindsight, is that this has given my child such an opportunity to feel empowered, to teach other people, to be open and honest, unapologetically, and to really learn to stand up for herself. So it's had this really incredible side effect on her personality that I'm actually quite grateful for. So educate your child as to what celiac disease is and how to effectively communicate with people about it. Teach them where gluten lives and where it doesn't live, because we don't want to increase food anxiety, because food anxiety can be a real thing in our kiddos. My daughter has still got quite high food anxiety, partially because she's also very symptomatic. and can be out for 24 hours, vomiting, feeling awful when she gets gluten. So what I do find is food anxiety and symptoms they're kind of where they land, go hand in hand. My husband's food anxiety is quite low because his symptoms are lower than my daughter's. My mom's food anxiety is more high too, because she is somewhere higher than my husband, but a little bit lower than my daughter. So educate your children so they understand what this is. Communication is the second one. Encourage discussion about your child's feelings and experiences related to celiac disease. Check in on them. If they come home, say, how was school today? How was lunch today? Anything new in the classroom? Really check in and let them feel heard and understood. That's the biggest thing with the communication piece. One of the parents today said that they're worried about, I think it was sort of the mental health piece of it. And that really is checking in, letting them know they're not alone, and letting them know that you're there to support them and that they also have this, they got it. And then advocating together. So teaching your child how to advocate for themselves, their dietary needs, and then doing that role play piece. So role play different scenarios with them so they can communicate with teachers, friends, and other adults. Because if they do that for the first time, like cold for the first time, that can be really nerve-wracking. So especially if these kids are already a bit nervous to talk to adults or teachers, that can be nerve-wracking. And then they're trying to advocate for themselves on top of that. So really work through with them and encourage them that this is something that they should do for themselves because they deserve it. Involve your child in their food choices. Take them grocery shopping. I say this to all of my clients, no matter if they're celiac or not. Take your child grocery shopping, get them involved. Go to the fruit and vegetable section and get something from every color of the rainbow. Get your reds, your orange, your yellow, your green, your blues, your purples, and then encourage them to try something from all of those different colors. That's, food 101 for our kids, getting them to increase in variety. The best way to do that is to get them to choose it themselves. Through all of the studies, through, children, through seniors, if you have choice, you are more likely to accept the food. This is just known fact. And then cooking skills. Encourage your kids to get in cooking as well. Different ages, different stages. So little ones, oh gosh, it can take a long time when you're baking or cooking with your little one. Obviously, it's not going to be near a stove, but maybe if you're making banana muffins, they can help you mash the bananas, that sort of thing. As they get older, they can get more involved. Teaching the label reading, we went over positive reinforcement, celebrate those successes. You used you had I was going to say Reese peanut butter cup, but those wouldn't be allowed in most schools. Oh, you had some M&Ms in your classroom today because such and such brought in a cake. Were they good? Oh, that's awesome. Oh, somebody else wanted the M&Ms instead of the cupcake. Oh, that's funny. Did you let them share a couple? Talk about those experiences, really chat about them, and give them that positive reinforcement that when they take those steps and make those bold moves, that you're like, yes, well done, good job. You're amazing. I can't believe how good you are at standing up for yourself. That is exactly what you should be doing. So really positively reinforce those things. Sorry, I've got an itchy eye. Could be all the animals in this house. Lead by example. So this is one that you might be thinking, but I don't have celiac disease. So how do I lead by example? So maybe you do have celiac disease, first of all. When my husband was diagnosed, my daughter was first in our immediate family. My mom was first. When my daughter was diagnosed, she was so grateful to have my mom because the two of them then became celiac allies. They had this in common. Then when my husband was diagnosed, Julie was like, yes, dad's celiac too. And it was kind of this semi celebration in the house that another person was diagnosed so that they can all band together and they have this in common and they're their own little troop. Not every child has that. I'm so grateful in our family that we do. We also have an aunt with celiac disease and I have a niece with celiac disease. So we do definitely have a cluster of us. We certainly show the genetic strength of celiac disease in our family. But I don't have celiac disease. And so my job when we go to restaurants, I'm the dietitian. So I tend to be the vocal one when it comes to ordering food. And so I am leading by example, showing my family that I can ask a lot of questions. I can stand up for myself. If the server says something that I don't agree with, I'll say, you know what, I can you just check on that? So I'm going to give you a quick story. We were in Hawaii last year. We were on Oahu and we went to a Mexican restaurant right across from the hotel. And I had ordered a cheese quesadilla. And Julie said, "Oh, I'll have a cheese quesadilla too. That sounds great." Chris had ordered a gluten-free burrito, etc. So out comes everybody's food. And I looked at Julie's quesadilla and I thought, that doesn't look gluten-free. And I said, "Hold off a sec, Jules. Don't eat that. Don't take a bite of that." And she immediately, with her food anxiety, went, and I said, "I just want to ask the server to double check that that's gluten-free because that looks awfully similar to mine." And that was my first tip off. Why do these two food items look identical when one should be gluten-free and one should have gluten in it? And second of all, even if I hadn't ordered the same item, I still would have questioned because it looked like a flour tortilla. Server came back and I said, can I just ask you a question? Can you verify that this is in fact a gluten-free quesadilla? And she said, absolutely, 100% that's gluten-free. I put it on the order. So yes, she's totally fine. Off she goes. And I said to Julie, don't take a bite of it. Please don't take a bite of it yet. And she's like, I'm not going to, Mom. You're freaking me out. I'm not going to take a bite of it. I just had a niggling feeling in my gut that that wasn't gluten-free. Back the server, I called the server back. I said, you know what? I'm just really suspicious that that's a flour tortilla. Do you mind taking it back to the kitchen and double checking? And so here's me leading by example. I'm teaching Julie that if you have that gut feeling that something's not right, keep pushing until you get your answer. And I wasn't going to be satisfied till that quesadilla went back to the kitchen and it was verified. Well, wouldn't you know, the server came back. She said, I'm so sorry. That actually was a gluten quesadilla. They're putting together your gluten-free one right now. To which case I was like, oh my goodness, thank goodness that we advocated for ourselves, that Julie didn't take a bite and say, no way, Mom, I'm hungry. I'm going to eat this anyways. This looks gluten-free. They said it was gluten-free. And that servers and kitchens make mistakes as well. Follow your gut. If my daughter had eaten that, she would have been violently ill. I can't imagine what would have happened if she'd eaten an entire quesadilla. I can't even imagine. We may have ended up in a hospital. So I really encourage you all to lead by example. I tell that story just because I really want to emphasize that mistakes happen. Everybody's human. And follow your gut and teach your kids to push if they don't think something's right. Focus on strengths. Building a strong sense of self-worth will help them face challenges and resiliency. So, maybe that maybe that server came back and said, you know what, it is gluten-free. And then I would have been like, okay, thank you so much for double checking. I really appreciate it. I really appreciate the extra steps you took for me. But rather than feeling embarrassed, I'm going to say, thank you, I appreciate that, and move on, because Julie's safety to me is what's most important. So that self-worth piece, don't be embarrassed. Don't hide in nervousness, really stand up, and then celebrate differences. People with celiac disease are one of so many different dietary restrictions, mental health diagnoses. We have so many differences among us. And I'm so proud of our kids nowadays at how open they are to conversation about it and how accepting they are of one another. Maybe the kid sitting next to you has ADHD and needs to have a bouncy stool. Like maybe it's a hokey stool that they're sitting on bouncing as they eat their lunch. And then the kid next to them has severe social anxiety and wants to eat at the office in a quiet space. Everybody has something. Celiac disease is just one of the masses of one of the things that people have. And so, we support and we celebrate everybody's differences. And we encourage our kids to know that this is their thing, but it's nothing to be embarrassed about. It's nothing they've done. Um, and it also helps them to empathize and better understand other kids and what they're bringing to the table. So, it's just, I just say this to say we might feel different, but isn't everybody, right? Isn't everybody bringing something that might be considered different to the classroom? So maybe there's no difference. Maybe we just are all the same. So next I'm going to briefly talk about, and I'm at 4:40, so I'm going to go through this part pretty quick. Quick nutrients of concern, just because as a dietitian, I want to make sure I tie in some nutritional content into here. Calcium and vitamin D, super important for our kiddos with celiac disease, for all kids actually. If anybody watched Global News last Saturday, I actually gave this as a talk on Global News BC. So if you want to see that, it's somewhere on their website, I'm sure. Kids, depending on the age of your child, 1,000 to 1,300 milligrams of calcium daily, vitamin D, 600 to 1,000 international units daily. Of course, we need vitamin D for bone development and formation. So this is going to help them. Vitamin D helps calcium to absorb into the bone. That's why we put these two things together. There's a lot of good sources of calcium out there. Dietary sources, for example, 3/4 of a cup of yogurt has about 300 milligrams of calcium. A cup of milk or a cup of plant-based beverage has about 300 milligrams of calcium. An ounce and a half of cheese has about the same. Dairy is a really easy way to get calcium into our kids' diets, but it's not the only way. Almonds, tofu, green leafy vegetables, these are all other good sources. There's lots of other ones too. Often when kids are newly diagnosed with celiac disease, dairy can be an issue. There's a whole reason for that, and that's because lactase lives at the end of the villi, and I've got my frozen Band-Aid on. Lactase lives at the end of the villi, and when that atrophies, when the gut is atrophied, the lactase is gone. Lactase, of course, digests lactose, which is in dairy, and when their villi regenerates and grows back, they might be able to digest lactose once again. So if your child is lactose intolerant, they might not be permanently. So watch for that. But we want to make sure we're getting enough calcium and vitamin D into our children. Of course, between October and May in Canada, we cannot access vitamin D from the sunshine. So we want to make sure we're getting it from either a food source or supplementation. If your child is going to take a supplement, they are fat soluble. So you can give them a supplement daily if you want to. You can give them a supplement once a week if you want to at a higher dose. I'll give my kids 4,000 or 5,000 at a go, no problem. If we're going to Hawaii, for example, for a week, I won't bother taking them there because we'll get enough of it from the sunshine there. So, but bear in mind when your kids are outside with sunscreen and hats and covered up or inside a lot in the summer, they also might not be getting it then too. So talk to your physician a little bit about that. And if your child is on any other medications, just run it by your pharmacist. We want to get enough fat into our kids. I know this might come across as a little bit strange, because you're thinking, well, don't kids get enough fat? But we want to make sure it's the right fat, okay? Kids actually need more energy from fats than adults do, and we want to make sure that it's the right unsaturated fatty acids. So we're going to be leaning more into those plant-based sources, avocados, so guacamole and stuff like that, nuts and nut butter, so peanut butter sandwich and whole wheat bread, fantastic. Seeds, pumpkin seeds, which are also high in iron. Olive oil drizzled on popcorn instead of butter. Other things in this picture, salmon, it's a omega-3 fatty acid, great source, tuna sandwich, that sort of thing. So we really want to encourage those unsaturated fatty acids to get enough fat into their diet. And then finally, iron. People who are newly diagnosed with celiac disease, 68% of them have an iron deficiency. Now, iron deficiency versus anemia are two different things. Anemia is when your hemoglobin is low, and that's a diagnostic anemia. When your ferritin is low, that is an iron deficiency. What iron does is it transports oxygen to the muscles. So if you're walking up a flight of stairs and you're like, whew, I feel weak. I don't feel breathless necessarily, but maybe I do. But my muscles feel weak. Get your iron levels tested. Get your kids' iron levels tested. Let's see what that's at, because we might need to increase the iron. They might need to be on an iron supplement. The other piece of iron in the celiac world is that gluten-containing flour is fortified with iron due to mandatory fortification standards here in Canada. So if you eat pasta, if you eat cookies, if you eat crackers, if you eat bread, if you eat cereals that contain gluten, you are getting iron via mandatory fortification standards. If you are celiac and you are eating and you are consuming gluten-free products, there are no mandatory fortification standards for iron, for folic acid, for niacin, for riboflavin, or for the fifth one, thiamine. We at Celiac Canada are advocating for equal fortification standards in gluten-free flours because I find it discriminatory, and it makes me so upset that my child, if she were to become pregnant without knowing it, when she's older, obviously, and she hadn't been taking folic acid supplements, she runs a 50% higher risk of having a child with spina bifida than a child who doesn't, because that was the reason we put folic acid on the mandatory fortification standards list, and it was a massive public health success by decreasing the risk of spina bifida by 50%. That's my soapbox. I'm going to get off of it now. As you can see, I'm quite passionate about that one. And we have brought it up with Health Canada, but please do write your letters if you so desire. But iron's an issue because not only are our villi atrophied and we're not absorbing our nutrients well, but our food's not fortified with iron, so we're not getting additional iron to help increase our levels. So we need to turn to those whole food sources, which is a good idea anyways. So what are whole food sources of iron? Well, I've got some plant-based sources here on the image. Oatmeal. Some breakfast cereals that are gluten-free are going to be fortified with iron. Check that. Pumpkin seeds are awesome. A quarter of a cup of pumpkin seeds has 5 milligrams of iron in it. So if you can, I'm constantly eating pumpkin seeds. I'm constantly giving my kids pumpkin seeds with chocolate chips in it as snacks for lunches. Their seeds are good. Seeds, don't worry about seeds for nut-free schools. They are completely different when it comes to the allergens. So nuts, make a little trail mix and put some little M&Ms in there if you want to. Whatever it takes to get something like that into your child, go for it. Lentils are another great source. What else is a good source of plant-based iron? What else was I thinking about? Other legumes can be, whenever you're eating a plant-based source of iron, we're going to pair it with a vitamin C source in order to increase the absorptive capacity of iron in the body. Of course, we have our heme iron or animal-based iron too. The red meats tend to be a little bit higher. The yellow of an egg has iron in it. The white is the protein. So if you eat the whole egg, you're getting the protein and the iron. So lots of other ways. Find out if your child has a deficiency, because it should have been in their initial blood work. And then if you are deficient, talk to a dietitian about increasing the iron levels. Iron supplements can be hard on the gut. They can cause nausea. They can cause severe constipation. So if we need to, of course, we're going to go that route. Other routes could be for adults, especially an iron infusion can be helpful. I don't know about iron infusions in the pediatric population, so I cannot speak to that just because I don't have the experience with it. Apologies, the dogs are going to bark. But certainly finding a dietitian to kind of talk one-on-one about that would be a good idea. Okay, resources. Sorry, my husband's on his way home and the dogs can see okay, so I apologize. We have a Facebook group, the CCA's Facebook group. I encourage you all to find it. It's got over 20,000 people on it. So if you have a question, there will be somebody out there who has an answer for you. The teacher brochure, look up our, and if anybody wants me, I can actually show you on the website. I can walk through it on the website and show you where it is. The teacher brochure and the letter. It is, if you If you go to celiac.ca and you type in children in the search bar, you will see all of those things there. So you can find them all there. And then we've got a workbook, All About Me, which is a kid's workbook. This is for the littles. It's really cool. It's a really good way. You print it up and there's some coloring, there's some matching, there's some find the differences, there's a crossword, there's a spot the gluten, and it's a really good opportunity for the little ones to get educated and have fun at the same time. Okay, back to school checklist. So this is actually in one of the downloads you can do on the website, but contact the school about your child's celiac disease, provide a copy of the brochure and the letter, label the lunch with those stickers, book a meeting with the teacher to discuss that safety plan of if your child's sick, what do you do? Ask about any cooking classes. I forgot to mention this. So in grade 8 here in BC, because my kids are K to 7 and then 8 to 12. I know there's middle school in probably most of Canada. But my daughter in grade 8, and this year as well, there was a cooking class that she was expected to do, I suppose. And I got her taken out of it because even in her own station, I didn't want her in the room with airborne flour. Because of the risk of her inhaling it and then it getting into her digestive system. So I did that. She could have had an option of wearing a mask. She didn't want to do that, so we found another plan. For younger students, ask about classroom Play-Doh. Play-Doh, of course, is made with wheat, flour, and we want to make sure that our kids, although it can't absorb through the hands, little ones will be touching their mouths. Pack emergency gluten-free snacks, keep in the teacher's desk. Remind your child not to share food with other kids and review the hot lunch program. All right. Now we have about 9 minutes for questions. Because I went long, I will stay on for a few extra minutes. But for those of you who need to go at 5 o'clock or 8 o'clock sharp, I completely understand. All right. So in the Q&A, I don't have any questions. I see people were putting some stuff in the chat. So remember, pop them in the Q&A, please. If you do have any questions. I'm just looking through the chat here. Yeah, a lot of kids are nervous and scared about it. Sylvie, are these available in French? Okay, so here's what I'm going to do. Because we don't have any official questions right now, which I'm really surprised about, I'm going to share my screen and we're going to walk through the website because I think that would actually be beneficial for everybody. Let's see here. Let's go to here. This is our website. I'm actually going to go to the home page so that you can see. Right now, this is the back to school is here. Click on this. And then here we have an elementary school guide and a post-secondary school guide. This is what that looks like. This is the elementary school guide. And this walks you through, it's a little bit of a, like a little magazine. Here comes Winston. To really go through and educate yourself, links to the brochure, the letter, cooking in the classroom, how to handle it. Click here for a 7-day meal plan for kids, and then building healthy habits for your strong children. If you keep going through here, you can get to, there's a giveaway. Post-secondary guide. I don't want you on me. Thank you. What else? Download the letters for school. The letter and the brochure are right here. So you can click on that and you can see here, this is the brochure for your teacher. What is celiac disease, the symptoms and the treatments. So they have everything that they need to know. All right. Lauren has asked a question. Any advice on decreasing cross-contamination in the classroom? Sick kids suggested all the kids wash their hands after they eat. School said that's not realistic. First day of grade 2 this year, someone opened a package and it exploded all over my daughter's lunch. She knew enough not to eat it and asked for an extra emergency snacks. I don't want to make her eat alone, but I'm not sure how to make it safe. Okay, so great question, Lauren. Yeah, it's not realistic to get every child in grade 2 to wash their hands. Our Before lunch, our kids at our school all line up to wash their hands. What's more important is that your child washes her hands. It doesn't matter so much that the other kids wash their hands. What matters is that your child's hands are clean. And if she, he, or they are putting them in their mouth, then they're not going to get sick. The opening up a package and exploding all over the lunch, those are mistakes that are going to happen. Um, they're unlikely. They're not going to happen every day. And if your child had containers in their lunch, obviously, rinsing off the container, making sure that's clean, and then what's inside it should be safe. But I would say the biggest thing is it doesn't matter what's on other kids' hands. It doesn't matter what other kids eat. Their food's not going to be airborne. No kid is going to bring loose flour, but what's most important is that your child keeps their hands safe and their lunch safely away from other kids' cross-contamination. So I have no problem with my child eating at a four-top table with other kids around them. As they get into their own desks, that's going to go away. That problem's going to go away. But if the younger grades are often at the four tops. So yeah, it's that's just, yeah, I think the answer. Oh, sorry, Winston. Sorry, my cat is rubbing his face all over the thing. Did that help you? I hope so. I'm not sure if that did or not, but hopefully it did. Does anybody else have any other questions? Thank you, Barbara. Are they available in French? Sylvie, what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you to check out the website. I know that we were working on French translations for most things on our website. I don't know all of which were translated, which ones were and which ones weren't. I'll get you to email info@celiac.ca. Whoops, I'm going to email that to the group. Sorry, everyone. info@celiac.ca. And you can ask there. They'll be able to tell you. Is there a cheat sheet for buying in the US for school snacks? So Tanya, US labeling is different from Canadian labeling in that barley doesn't have to be listed on their labels. So here in Canada, all gluten sources. Oh dear, sorry, my cat has decided to hide under the tablecloth and pounce on me. Winston, what are you doing? Goodness me. Sorry. Dear me, I wish you could see what he's doing. He's going absolutely crazy. So I only buy things that are either whole foods or have a gluten-free label when we're in the US. We go to the US quite a bit for camping or for holidays, and I will only buy things that have a gluten-free claim. So if it doesn't have it on it, I can't guarantee that barley is not going to be in there in some form or another. So that's where I'm careful. Tanya, I understand it's complicated and lots of historical Facebook post reference, but the link is broken. Oh, sorry, Tanya, what link is broken? Oh, the US cheat sheet. Oh, I wonder why. Again, so Tanya, could you email info@celiac.ca? That would, and then ask them about that because I am only contracted and not doing that sort of day-to-day things anymore. So if you'll email, that'd be great. Awesome. Thanks so much. If anybody did want to see a dietitian, we do have lots of dietitians that we can recommend throughout Canada as well. If you want to see me in BC, I'm more than happy to. You can always let me know. How often should siblings get tested? Great question, Lauren. Every 2 to 3 years or if symptoms arise suddenly. So a couple of things. So just again, for those of you who need to go, by all means, I'll just tell this quick story. When my 5-year-old was diagnosed, now 14-year-old, I didn't know my husband had celiac disease. I assumed the gene. So there's the HLA-DQ2 and HLA-DQ8 genes. I assumed the genes came from my side because my mom is celiac. Because of that, I had my older daughter genetically screened. I wanted to know if she needed to be tested every 2 to 3 years. So for a kid who doesn't like needles, I thought best to just get this as a one and done. Let's test her, see if she carries the gene. And if she doesn't carry the gene, we don't have to screen her every few years. We can just move forward with that. Turns out, of course, she carries the gene. And later, of course, my husband was diagnosed. So the gene's coming from both sides. So I would have, that was a bit of a irrelevant, a bit irrelevant, but you could do that. So Lauren, you could go get them genetically screened, looking for that HLA DQ2 and DQ8. I'll show you who's making all this noise. This is Story. And then, or every 2 or 3 years, or, if they're doing fine and nothing seems to be wrong, whenever they go in for blood work, just say, can you throw in the TTG test, please? Can you throw in the TTG? Let's test her. Let's test them again for the celiac disease. If they suddenly start losing weight, if they suddenly start having tummy aches, if their dental enamel is noted by the doctor to be not good, if they've got unexplained iron deficiency, if anything like that shows up, get them tested. Okay, thank you everybody for coming tonight or this afternoon. I so appreciate it. Oh, Sylvie, no problem. Great, excellent. Thank you so much for coming. We do have a gluten-free 101 next week. If you are interested, we are meeting with Thyroid Canada this year, as well as in December, I will be having some sort of holiday discussion. So please check out our resources, our page that has all of our upcoming events on it, and sign up for whatever you would like. Everything is, of course, free. So I will say goodbye from North Vancouver. I hope everybody has a wonderful rest of your evening. Oh, one more question in there. Lauren, how would you connect with a dietitian? Sick Kids only gave one. Okay, Lauren, assuming you're in Ontario because of that Sick Kids reference, you could check Dietitians of Canada. Let me write down there. They have a find a dietitian thing on there. Dietitians of Canada. Oh, wow. My daughter just got a strawberry from her garden. Lovely. And then on the Dietitians of Canada website, you can put in find a dietitian, put in their specialty. Here's the other dog. Put in their specialty, and then it will tweak down. So of course, just due to laws, when it comes to our dietitian terminology. So here in who's in provincial and territorial areas, we all belong to our college in our province. So I would offer, of course, to see all of you, but I'm only registered in BC at the moment. I've thought about registering myself in Ontario so I can see clients out there as well. But if you wanted to speak to me as a nutritionist, not as a dietitian, that would be fine. I'd be happy to speak to you. The only thing is you couldn't claim it on your extended health insurance if you're seeing me privately. But I will leave that up to everybody. If anybody did want to look at my private website, it is freshstartnutrition.ca. But thank you to everybody. You can also email info@celiac.ca for any questions. Our dietitian on staff there is always happy to answer questions as well, and she is absolutely wonderful. So I wish everybody a good rest of your evening, and I hope that your kids have a wonderful start to the school year. Thanks so much for joining me tonight. Bye for now.